Hello. Hi. How are you guys doing today? You happy to be here for 3MT? I'm very happy to be here for 3MT. And you probably have no idea who I am, so I'll tell you who I am. My name is April. I'm a Skills Development Officer at TLS. That's Teaching and Learning Services here at McGill. And maybe you don't know what that means. Sometimes I don't know what that means. But one of the greatest projects that I work on all year, and I actually lead a team of staff and students on, is organizing this competition. And we've been organizing together since September, and we're finally here. And so I'm going to say some opening remarks. And it was also really important to me that in opening this competition today, the final competition, that we start with a land acknowledgement. And I'd actually never done a land acknowledgement before. So I'd like to share with you a bit of my process. And I thought, since I work at Teaching and Learning Services and we're here celebrating research, and I did a bit of research to be able to do this land acknowledgement today, that I would do the land acknowledgement in the format loosely of a 3MT. So when I got to work this morning, I made this slide. Elisa, you can switch to it now. Which is kind of a joke, so I hope you'll laugh, but also not a joke because land acknowledgements are amazing and very important. But I'm going to attempt to explain to you in 3 minutes or less 3 important things I learned about land acknowledgements, which I will attempt to share with you in 3 minutes or less. And you'll see this is the slide that we're using for our presenters as well. Go ahead, Lisa. So the first thing I learned about land acknowledgements is that it's really important when you're setting up to do a land acknowledgement at a big event that you do your homework. So you have to know where you are and how to pronounce any words that are non-English words that may not be familiar to you. So you can see I have a land acknowledgement up here in printed version for accessibility purposes mainly. And there are 2 words up here which aren't English. Now, I'm wondering if anyone in the audience knows how to say either of those 2 words. Yeah? Want to give it a try? Sure. Go for it. Yes. Yes. Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe. Beautiful words, very, very old words, different language. And these 2 nations were actually thousands of years ago, before McGill existed, before the faculty club was built, were stewards of this land, which means they took care of this land. And the land that we're on today, we're actually connected to because it's the same land. The things that might be happening over top of the soil are slightly different, but we're still here. And it's important to take a moment to acknowledge that and really take it all in, something that I've been sharing with our presenters today, to really enjoy the moment, take it all in. And part of the way that we can do that is by situating ourselves in time and space. That's part of the land acknowledgement. That's actually the second thing I learned about land acknowledgements. It's that it's important to acknowledge the past, where we've come from, the people that have helped us to get where we are today, who have contributed to the history of where we are. And it's important also to acknowledge the present. So these days, if you come to downtown Montreal, we call it Montreal. We don't call it Tiohtià:ke, which was a traditional name for this territory back in the day before McGill, before the colonization, before the faculty club was built. And so helping us to situate ourselves in time is actually a theme that we're talking about today. We're here, it's the 3-minute thesis. And the Montreal that we're in today might look a little bit different than it did now and then, but we still live in a diverse community full of Indigenous people, perhaps some ancestors of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe people, but also different people, a diverse community. And that's something else that we're celebrating here with 3MT. We have 14 competitors who have done a great job of getting here to the finals. We picked them out of 130 students who registered. We have 14, and they represent a great diversity of students, different departments, different histories, different backgrounds. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to just look around and appreciate the community that we're in. So that's the second thing I learned about land acknowledgements, acknowledge the past, present, and the future. And the third thing I learned about land acknowledgements is that it's very important, if you're giving a land acknowledgement, to personalize it and make it your own. And that's why I tried to do this kind of quirky formatting or reimagining of a land acknowledgement to tie it into 3MT. These themes of time, knowing where we are, past, present, where we've come from, being able to appreciate the moment and the people around us, this theme of community and the diversity of community, and the beautiful knowledge that we all have within us, inside of us. Sometimes I talk too fast and then I trip over my words. That we're going to hear about today, all of these different researchers, graduate students who are coming to give them their 3-minute thesis. And what I'm hoping is that through communicating in my own special way, land acknowledgements, what I've learned, why they're important, why I think they're important as an organizing member of the 3MT committee to have land acknowledgement today, that it will maybe inspire you to learn a little bit more about the land that we're on, the people around you, and really help to relax into the community that we're celebrating today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my colleague, the Associate Provost of Teaching and Learning. Sorry, that's wrong. He's new, and I'm new to saying his title. This is the first land acknowledgement, first time I've tried to introduce my colleague. Associate Provost of Teaching and Academic Programs, Professor Chris Buttle. Okay. I don't want to take your notes.
Thank you, April. So you might know me from other productions at McGill, such as Founders Day or Convocation, and I'm very grateful to be given any opportunity to be involved with events that bring a whole lot of joy to a whole lot of people, and also to celebrate the excellence with our students. So it really is my pleasure to be here today. As April mentioned, my name is Chris Buttle. I was former Dean of Students and now Associate Provost. And again, I'm privileged to be here to basically do a couple of things. One is keep the show moving. The second is to try not to screw up the pronunciation of any of our students' names, because we're here for our students, and I will do my best on all accounts. So, bienvenue. Ma thèse en 180 secondes, or 3-minute thesis, is essentially the end point of an exciting journey that started back in September. And to celebrate such an important event, we have a couple of special guests here today, and first of those is our Principal and Vice Chancellor, Professor Suzanne Fortier. So I'll invite Professor Fortier up to say a few words of welcome, and then we'll keep the show going.
Bonjour à vous tous. C'est vraiment fantastique de voir une salle remplie. It's so great to see this room full of people, and I don't know how many people are online, but welcome to you too. I'll start by thanking our judge. I think you'll have a tough job to do, so enjoy it, but I know that you will do a very good job here. You know, the main thing is we should congratulate all these people who have done their thesis. This is a major accomplishment. And it's interesting because what a thesis represents the fact, incredible fact, that you've all acquired new knowledge, something that nobody knew before you. Isn't that amazing that you have done that? You're at the end of the path. You've done your thesis after many, many weeks and many months, many years of hard work. And now we're putting a new challenge in front of you. Summarize that in 3 minutes, 180 secondes. Tous ces mois de travail ardu, de recherche, d'heures passées à la bibliothèque, il faut le faire en 3 minutes. Seems odd, but I'm always impressed by how much people are eager to learn. And they're eager to learn what you know. Of course, they won't give you months and years, but they will give you enough time so you can grab their attention, and then they'll really want to learn more from you. Et c'est vraiment le but de ceci. Ma thèse en 180 secondes, c'est de pouvoir partager avec les autres ce que vous avez appris, d'avoir leur attention de sorte qu'ils veulent en savoir plus. Now, there's something here. How many of you have looked at documents in English and in French, the same thing? If you have, and I've done that a lot, particularly when I was at the federal government where everything was translated, there's something that one will notice always. it's much longer in French. There's always many more pages. So, those of you who are presenting in French, vous avez un défi encore plus grand de tout résumer ça en 180 secondes. Alors, bravo à vous tous. Vraiment, bravo, félicitations, congratulations for great achievement. And now go out there and tell people, not only today, tell people what you've learned, because we all are eager to learn from you. Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Yes, I did forget to mention, bienvenue aussi à vous qui nous rejoignez en ligne sur live stream. We have many people that join this over live stream. So hi everyone out there in virtual world. The second special guest is the Dean of Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies, Dean Nalbantoglu, who's going to say a few words of welcome also.
Thank you, Chris. I'd like to welcome again Principal Portier. We're very honored. So I'm the Dean of Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies, and as Chris was mentioning, we have many joyful events during the year, and this is one of them. It's amazing. I really like a lot, I focus a lot on energy, energy in the community, energy in the room. And this competition has evolved over the years so much. We started initially by people sending in a short summary, and someone would decide whether they were worth going up on a stage and talking for 3 minutes. We turned it into a training environment. So the people at Teaching and Learning Services and at GPS who have worked through this, April makes it sound easy, but the operational part is incredible, considering that we start with 130 students. And you've got to know that a lot of these students started in their own departments, because departments run 3MT, so it's not just the central one. So because we are really focused on communications, this is one of the most important things that we can impart to our students, is that they do amazing research, but someone's got to hear about that research. And it should be more than just the scholarly journals or scholarly conferences. It's got to be something that they're excited about to share with everyone, as Principal Fortier said. And that's what we're going to be hearing today. And it's always been very exciting, and I really like this because Chris is doing the emceeing, and it's not me. I can sit back, really enjoy it. So I'd like wish good luck to all the finalists. It's a very tough decision at the end. You're all winners, and you know that. And also the judges, I've never been a judge because I didn't want to be a judge ever, because that is also a very tough job. So thank you everyone for being here, and I'll call Chris back.
You're all winners. I tell my kids that, and it is true. You're all winners for being here, so thank you for pointing that out. Before we begin, we're going to see a very short video. I'll turn your attention to the screen. It was so short you didn't even see it.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mark O'Connell, President and CEO of Interact Corporation. We are Canada's #1 trusted financial brand and known as one of Canada's first homegrown fintechs. On a personal note, I'm actually also a proud alumnus of McGill University, a school that I think is clearly Canada's #1 academic brand. Today, we are very excited to be able to support the 3 Minute Thesis Challenge. Communicating complex information is a skill that is going to benefit you well beyond your academic careers and into your professional career. In fact, if I had to choose one skill that I have utilized the most and has been most effective in advancing my career and adding value to the companies that I've worked for, it is communication. This is something we know well at Interac and practice every day. I hope that most of you, in fact, all of you, are familiar with Interac solutions. Whether it's paying at the point of sale in store with Interac Debit, or sending money to or requesting money from others using Interac e-Transfer. Behind these easy ways to pay is a complex set of technologies and applications that we are constantly innovating to meet the needs of our customers. But in order to move these innovations forward, we need to get the buy-in of our various stakeholders, whether that be our board of directors, our shareholders, or our partners. And effective communication is critical in achieving this buy-in and instilling confidence. On that note, I want to wish you all the best of luck in the 3-Minute Thesis competition finals today, and the best of luck in your academic and future career endeavors.
Let's give a big thank you to Interac for helping support this. I think to me that also signals just the broader external recognition of the value of this endeavor in general. And I think the point that communication is such an important skill, that just resonates so strongly with me, and when I see my own students and when I see my colleagues and the amazing people at McGill, honing those skills is critical. So as you can see, I'm only going to speak for about an hour and a half, and then we're going to get through all the talks quite quickly. Don't worry. Actually, I'll make it. The order of proceedings is fairly straightforward. We're going to have some opening remarks, then presentations, and the judges will deliberate. Après toutes les présentations, les juges délibérés ont bien sur vous de voir aussi voter pour votre favorite pour les prix du public. So you'll all have a chance to vote for your favorite in the public prize. And that will be done by ballot, and we'll explain that at the end, but pay attention because then you get a chance to have your voice heard. If you're watching online, you'll also be able to vote through that platform. Some notes for the, now and then after that, there'll be announcing of the winners, and then there'll be a reception afterwards. Some notes for the audience. S'il vous plaît, voulez-vous mettre vos cellulaires en mode silencieux? Silence your phones. Photos are fine, but no flash, please, and no sound. And please, don't drink too much in the hall here. The competition itself, I'll spend just a couple minutes talking about this. The 3MT is a research communication competition developed at the University of Queensland in 2008. It's now international. En 2012, en Québec, par l'Association francophone pour le savoir, ACFAS, it began for basically to represent les pays francophonie. And graduate students have 3 minutes in both competitions, and despite what Principal Fortier mentioned, the challenge is the same. They present a compelling oral presentation to a non-specialist audience using a single static slide. The timer is monitored right there so that the students are aware of how much time they have left, and the judges are notified if anyone goes over time. You're not allowed to dance or rap or wear costumes. It's about spoken word. Despite the opportunities that are there, maybe the competition will evolve over time to different sorts of scenarios. The critères d'évaluation en français, talent, l'orature et implication, structuration de l'exposé et vulgarisation. C'est très difficile pour un anglophone, the word vulgarisation. How am I doing? I'm okay. Communication, comprehension, and engagement. These are the foundational principles to the 3-minute thesis. After the last presenter, the judges will leave the room to deliberate, and I'll be able to host a small question and answer period with the presenters and with the audience, which will be a lot of fun. A few minutes about the road to the competition. As the Dean of GPS mentioned, more than 130 students registered to participate. There was skills training associated with it. The finalists received individual training to prepare for today. I got to take part in judging one of the heats. It was incredibly challenging to find ways to, because everyone is a winner, right? There's excellence in every presentation. Speaking of the judges, I wanted to introduce the panel who's sitting in front here with front row seats. We have 4 judges this year. Voici donc les membres de notre jury multidisciplinaire. They're from various backgrounds, but bring a whole lot of expertise to the table. On my right or your left is Justine Perez-Smith, who has been writing professionally as a film and cultural critic since 2014 and has contributed to a wide variety of publications in Canada, the US, and abroad. She's currently a contributor at the National Post, Little White Lies, Cult Montreal, and others. And since 2018, she's collaborated with and has been affiliated with the Fantasia International Film Festival. Welcome, and thank you for being here. The gentleman on the panel, Joe Schwartz, is well known to many of you, no doubt, as director of McGill's Office of Science and Society, which has a mission of separating sense from nonsense, which is a great moniker. He's a recipient of numerous awards for teaching chemistry and for interpreting science for the public. Dr. Joe has hosted a radio show on science for 40 years. I actually stayed in the car for a while when I pulled back to my house because I had to finish listening. So it's widely listened to and enjoyed. And he's written regularly for newspaper columns and best-selling books. Nancy Ross is sitting here as well. Professor Ross is McGill's Associate Vice Principal of Research, leads and directs initiatives and projects that advance McGill's research enterprise across a variety of disciplines, a professor in geography and an associate member in the Department of Epidemiology, Biostatistics, and Occupational Health. She is also, on top of that, a Tier 1 Canada Research Chair in the Geosocial Determinants of Health. So welcome, Nancy. And finally, on your right and my left is Laura Weiner, who's the Director of Teaching and Learning Services. Before coming to Teaching and Learning Services, she was in the Office of the Provost as Special Advisor to the Provost and also spent 4 years in the Office of the CIO as a Senior Educational Technologist and has taught in the Faculties of Education at McGill, University de Montréal, and Concordia, and conducted research on educational and teaching applications for information and communication technologies. So a warm welcome to the judges, and thank you very much for taking part today. And the judges have the pleasure of awarding 4 different prizes. The first prize in English and Premier Prix en Français, both are worth $750 cash from an Interact machine. Huh? Had to say it. The English winner will advance to the Canadian Eastern Regionals. The Français advancé la finale nationale concours at ACFAS. And the judges will name a second and third place winner from all the contestants, Anglais et Français. And there's the People's Choice Award that I mentioned earlier that's awarded by the audience's chosen favorite, irrespective of the judges' selection. I'm getting there. 10 more minutes? No, I'm actually almost done. Honestly, we're getting there. It's the moment we've been waiting for, the presentations. We have a total of 14 presenters, and you have programs, so you see their names in your program. What I will be doing is introducing each of the presenters, inviting them to the stage, and they will begin when they are ready. So once they start speaking or gesturing, that's when their 3 minutes start. They're all fully aware of this. I'm actually just telling you this for the rest of the audience. And I really do want to wish all of the presenters good luck, bonne chance. Let's have a lovely afternoon, and thank you again. There's great energy in the room. Let's have a round of applause to start things off. First up today is Fiona Darcy, Smoke on the Mountain. Fiona Darcy studies volcanic gases at active volcanoes in Costa Rica and Italy with McGill's Volcanology Research Group. She studied geography at the University of Ottawa and discovered a love of volcanoes while on exchange in Iceland. She enjoys photography, hiking, and spending time in Ottawa, where she lives with her husband, cat, and ever-growing rock collection. Very good. Welcome, Fiona.
What did the big volcano say to the little volcano? You're too young to smoke. The funny thing is, volcanoes don't produce smoke at all. They produce pulverized rock called ash, and they produce gases. Carbon dioxide, something present in the very air which surrounds us and which we breathe out every day, is one of the most abundant gases emitted by volcanoes. This is the gaseous form of carbon dissolved in the magma, or the melted rock which feeds eruptions. What most people don't know is that these gases are not only emitted during eruptions, but also in the quieter times in between, making them one of the most important clues we have as to whether a seemingly benign volcano is ready to explode. My thesis tackles a new way in which we can harness carbon dioxide at volcanoes to improve volcano monitoring and eruption forecasting. So carbon dioxide has been shown to increase relative to the other volcanic gases in the months and weeks leading up to eruptions, and carbon isotopes, or unique chemical changes in the gas, have been shown to reflect changes in magma supply. However, there is one major problem. It turns out that measuring gases from a deep steaming hole in the ground can be a challenge when you don't want to fall into a superheated volcanic vent. Unfortunately, these gases are also the best to sample because they're closest to the magma source. So, how do we solve this problem? The solution I propose: drones. Last year, I built and tested a few sampling assemblies which could remotely turn on and off a gas pump attached to a drone, allowing me to sample gases in some pretty dangerous environments. I added a gas sensor which could send data back to the remote controller by telemetry or radio signals, so that I would know when to turn on and off the pump. These gas samples were later analyzed with a portable mass analyzer to search for those isotopic patterns indicating trouble ahead. Both volcanoes we tested this at last year ended up erupting just weeks after our data showed some interesting anomalies. This could be the future of volcano monitoring. Rapid and safe deployment of gas sampling drones could one day be used to detect subtle volcanic unrest. I don't need to remind everyone of the serious danger volcanoes pose to us. Taal still threatening the Philippines, and in White Island last December, there was a fatal eruption. Even as Canadians, with just a few volcanoes on our west coast, we have a duty to understand the natural hazards which threaten our neighbors. For volcanoes, I hope I've convinced you that volcanic gases are just the thing to provide the first whiff of danger brewing on the horizon. Thank you.
The pause here is purposeful so the judges have a moment to take a few notes, and then we'll continue. Okay, we're going to move on to our second presenter. I will now welcome Sophie Fiola to the stage. Sophie is a master's student in the integrated program in neuroscience at McGill. She's originally from Winnipeg, where she obtained her BSc in genetics from the University of Manitoba and decided to use her graduate studies as an excuse to move to Montreal, good idea, where she works on a project that combines her passion for genetics, neuroscience, and microbiology. When she is not in the lab, she spends as much time as possible in the outdoors pursuing her hobbies of climbing, running, and cycling. And she'll speak to us about beer, bread, and brain tumors.
So what do beer, bread, and brain tumors have in common? I'm going to tell you in just a moment. So hi, everyone. My name is Sophie, and for my thesis, I study low-grade gliomas. So these are a type of tumor that happen in young, otherwise healthy people. Now, if you or a loved one were diagnosed with a low-grade glioma today, you'd have 3 options for treatment: surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy. But these treatments, they're not very specific, and they have a lot of side effects. Chemotherapy, for example, targets all the cells in your body. It just happens to target cancer cells more because they grow faster. So I'm looking for better treatments for low-grade gliomas using an idea called synthetic lethality. So let's say we have a gene A and a gene B. If you have a mutation in only A or a mutation in only B, your cells will survive. But if you have a mutation in both A and B, your cells will die. This allows us to create more targeted treatments against tumors, because if we target B, only the cells that already have a mutation in A are the ones that die. So I decided to look for these targets using yeast. So I'm sure that at this point, some of you might be thinking, but Sophie, yeast don't have brains, so how could they be used to target brain tumors? Well, as it turns out, it all comes down to this one molecule called 2-hydroxyglutarate. So in the low-grade gliomas, 90% of them have a mutation, which makes them make too much of this molecule. And this is what leads to cancer, but we don't really know how. So what I did is I took a strain of yeast, which has a mutation, so that it makes too much 2-hydroxyglutarate. And then I crossed it with 5,000 other strains of yeast, each with a different mutation in a different gene. And I was looking for mutations that resulted in cell death. And guess what? I found one. I actually found a mutation that only killed the cells that made too much 2-hydroxyglutarate. So this is really exciting because we can use this to create targeted treatments against specific cancers. And this doesn't just apply to brain tumors, because there are other types of cancers that make too much 2-hydroxyglutarate, like certain types of blood and breast cancers. So the next time that you're eating a slice of bread or drinking a beer, remember, yeast, also for brain tumors. Thank you.
I don't have any more jokes. The Interact one was the only one I had. I'm sorry. Next, we'll have Shane Gracious doing PhD in chemistry. Originally from Ontario, Shane moved to Nova Scotia in 2014 to complete his undergraduate degree at Dalhousie. After graduating, he completed an internship at Tesla, developing high-energy batteries. He's currently co-supervised at McGill by Dr. Chris Barrett and Dr. Hanadi Sleeman, designing photoresponsive DNA-based materials. Outside of the lab, he enjoys soccer, music, and hiking. Let's welcome Shane.
Do you know why cancer patients lose their hair? This is a question I pose when people ask me about my research, and most people respond, not exactly. So from there, I explain the concept of off-target activity and some of the issues with drugs in the field of chemotherapy. Although counterintuitive, an issue with many of these drugs is that they're too efficient at killing cells. These drugs are composed of highly reactive molecules that aggressively attack cancer cells, killing them and inhibiting their further reproduction. However, these drugs are so effective, they also kill our healthy cells. It's like if I asked a toddler to bring me an apple from a table that has an apple and an orange on it. Well, I'd be impressed if they brought me the apple. I wouldn't be too surprised if they brought me the orange. After all, they're both fruits. Still, we shouldn't compare apples to oranges, and the same goes with our cells. Cancer drugs make false analogies between our healthy cells and cancerous cells, and for this reason, are unable to differentiate between them. This gives rise to the concept of off-target activity, where the drug will attack our healthy cells instead of the intended target cancerous site. And this is why our friends and family lose their hair. The cells responsible for its reproduction have been attacked. This is also why something as insignificant as the common cold becomes a life-threatening situation for somebody undergoing chemotherapy. These patients are cell deficient, and this mere loss of hair that we see visually actually corresponds to loss of billions of more cells that are vital for our survival. So how do we overcome these issues? Well, one method is the use of nanovehicles. These are nanostructured macromolecules that act like vehicles to safely transport the drug to the cancerous site, where ideally they can release the drug to react with the cancerous cells. In our lab, we create these nanovehicles using DNA. This poses two distinct advantages. First, DNA is safe. It's floating around inside every one of us and poses no problems. Second, DNA is simple. Scientists have shown that by using DNA's inherent properties, we can fold and click DNA with other DNA to make three-dimensional shapes, just like Lego. So the idea is we take the DNA, fold it into this three-dimensional shape, and then put our drug inside it. Inside this DNA cage, the drug is trapped and can no longer react with our healthy cells. Once the DNA cage has successfully transported the drug to the cancerous site, we then invoke a controlled release mechanism, which frees the drug and allows it to react. But how do we control this release? This is where the use of azobenzene comes in. This is a fascinating molecule that can alter its shape when light is shone on it, switching from a straight to bent structure. So imagine how when integrated into the middle of a straight DNA strand, this molecule could induce bending, similar to how your elbow bends your arm. Now we can use these molecules to safely transport the drug to the cancerous site, and then, by shining light on them, selectively control the release. This promotes a more controlled approach to cancer therapy that alleviates a lot of the issues with off-target activity. I hope that through these strategies, in the future, I can propose a new question. Do you know why cancer patients used to lose their hair? Thank you.
Did you ever see that movie, The Matrix? I asked this because they put the little package of like information in the back of their heads, and am I missing it? You guys getting the reference? 3 Minute Thesis, I find, is like this intense, beautiful way to get a little package of concentrated information beautifully presented. So I'm hoping you're enjoying the packets that you're all getting today. Our next presenter is Stephanie Muchbahani-Constance, doing her PhD in physiology. Her research focuses on understanding how painful venoms, namely lionfish venom, can teach us new things about how our pain-sensing mechanisms work. Outside of academia, she advocates for the participation of women in scientific research, starting a program called Shadow Her that lets high school students shadow graduate students to see what a career in science could be like. Her talk is called Using Lionfish Venom to Identify Templates for New Pain Treatments. Welcome, Stephanie.
This is Tracy. She's been suffering from chronic pain for over 5 years, and her doctors have yet to find a drug to help soothe her discomfort. Now, unfortunately, her story is a common one. The development of new pain drugs has been stalled since companies have struggled to develop drugs that specifically treat pain and have minimal side effects. 1 in 5 Canadians is currently suffering from chronic pain, and they desperately need a solution for their condition. Now, admittedly, drug design is a complicated process, and us humans like to think that we can come up with some pretty great molecules. But the fact is that Mother Nature is the best designer of all because she has evolution on her side. Mother Nature has gifted us with libraries of molecules that have the potential to become the next generation in therapeutics. And she's hidden these libraries inside of venoms. Venomous animals have evolved highly complex cocktails of molecules that have been honed by Mother Nature to specifically act on different parts of our nervous system. My research focuses on studying the excruciatingly painful venom from the lionfish and understanding how this venom can cause so much pain on a molecular level. I've discovered that this venom activates a subset of pain-sensing nerve cells through a mechanism that I'm currently uncovering, where I use experiments in which I extract venom from lionfish and I test them on cells, so I can measure exactly how lionfish venom is activating human pain-sensing nerve cells. The fact that I use human instead of mouse cells will ultimately maximize the therapeutic potential of my findings, and this is important because the molecules in lionfish venom that are responsible for its specificity in causing pain are exactly the kinds of molecular templates that can be used for future drug design. By designing molecules whose shape and composition are based on those from lionfish venom, they can act on the same place in the nervous system, but little tweaks to their molecular structure would allow them to instead inactivate their targets, providing patients with specific pain relief. And now, this is by no means the first time a poison was used for good. Just think of Botox. It's literally a paralytic toxin that's produced by bacteria, and yet scientists found a way to harness its potential for good and make us prettier, less sweaty, and have less migraines. But what I haven't told you is that there are close to 1 million venomous species on our planet, and less than 10% of their venoms have ever even been studied. So you can imagine what kinds of gems of molecules are hiding in Mother Nature's unread encyclopedia of venoms. By studying lionfish venom and figuring out exactly how and what inside this venom makes it tick, I hope to bring to light new molecules that can be used as an instruction guide for the development of new and effective painkillers, so that 1 in 5 Canadians and patients like Tracy may someday find relief from their pain. Thank you.
Maintenant, je vais présenter Marjolaine Rivet-Beauregard. Elle est une jeune chercheure étudiante en santé mentale dans le domaine de psychotraumatisme. Complément la maîtrise en psychiatrie sous la supervision du professeur Alain Brunet. Elle a pour objectif que le plus de communautés francophones possible aient accès à des soins post-trauma. Dans le futur, elle souhaite entendre son travail au domaine de la psychotraumatologie globale. Welcome, Marjolaine.
Les catastrophes humaines et naturelles nous frappent de plein fouet. Les inondations 2017 et 2019 au Québec, les attentats de Paris au Liban et les feux de forêt en Australie ne sont que quelques exemples. Une des conséquences potentielles de ces événements-là est ce qu'on appelle le développement d'un trouble de stress post-traumatique. Ça, c'est un trouble dont on entend souvent parler lorsqu'on parle des vétérans, mais qui peut aussi survenir suite à une exposition à une menace pour notre vie. C'est un trouble qui implique des symptômes comme des flashbacks, des cauchemars, de l'irritabilité. C'est un trouble qui est extrêmement, qui apporte beaucoup de détresse pour les gens. Et pour cette raison-là, que ce soit pour nos grands-parents qui ont participé à la guerre ou que ce soit pour nos cousins qui ont perdu leur maison, il est important qu'on ait accès à de bons diagnostics. Parce que sans bons diagnostics, on ne peut ni avancer nos connaissances sur le sujet et on ne peut pas apporter les bons traitements non plus. Donc, pour s'assurer qu'on offre des bons diagnostics, on utilise un outil qu'on appelle l'entrevue clinique. Mais malgré que le français soit la 5e langue la plus parlée au monde, on n'a pas encore accès à cet outil-là en français. Donc, pour ma thèse, j'en ai fait la validation. Donc, la validation, c'est un processus scientifique rigoureux qui nous permet de nous assurer que les diagnostics que l'on va avoir vont être bons, mais vont aussi être fiables. Donc, premièrement, un groupe d'experts a traduit les questions de l'entrevue de l'anglais au français en s'assurant que tout correspondait bien aux symptômes. Deuxièmement, j'ai amassé les données de plus d'une centaine de francophones à travers le monde, des gens venant du Québec, du Liban et de la France. Troisièmement, j'ai analysé toutes ces données-là afin de m'assurer que les diagnostics étaient bel et bien bons et fiables. Comme de fait, ils le sont. Et quatrièmement, j'ai comparé mes résultats à l'entrevue anglaise et à ses diagnostics. Et comme de fait, les résultats sont les mêmes. Donc, non seulement j'ai démontré que l'entrevue en français est valide, mais en plus qu'on peut l'utiliser interculturellement. Parce que les catastrophes humaines et naturelles, ce n'est pas juste le problème d'un pays, ce n'est pas juste le problème d'une culture, c'est un problème global et il est temps qu'on apporte des solutions globales. Et pour cette raison-là, mon but, c'est de m'assurer que tous les francophones à travers le monde aient accès à un bon diagnostic. Merci.
Anybody need to stretch? Okay, next we're going to learn about rich soils for better futures. Abdulrazik Tamim was awarded a full scholarship from the United States Department of State to pursue his bachelor's degree in economics at the American University of Beirut. Then he joined McGill to pursue his master's after being awarded another full scholarship from Al Ghurair Foundation for Education. He is interested in development economics, and his research focuses on understanding farmers' input decisions in Tanzania. Welcome.
Last summer, I went to Tanzania to study food insecurity. Salim was one of the farmers who I met there. I remember very well when he told me, "Look at my farm. This is a bad year for me because the soil's nutrients are deficient and I don't have the money to purchase fertilizers." Indeed, lack of fertilizer use in Africa is a puzzling issue that has many reasons. My study attempts to solve this puzzle through two hypotheses. First, farmers, as Salim told me, do not have the money to purchase fertilizers. And second, farmers are not aware of the profitability of fertilizers. To test these hypotheses, we conducted a randomized control trial, meaning we assigned farmers randomly into a treatment group and a control group. For farmers who were in the treatment group, we divided them into three parts. The first part was given the money to purchase any fertilizer. As for farmers who were in the second part, we went to their corn farms and took soil samples in order to recommend the suitable fertilizer based on the soil's deficiencies. The third part had both money and soil testing. As for farmers who were in the control group, we monitored them to compare their corn yields with the three treatment parts. Our results indicate that only in case 3, when both soil testing and money were given to farmers, do the yields increase significantly and by 150%. This is exciting news because once this corn was sold at the local market, the average farmer, like Salim, earned a profit which is equivalent to the salary of 4 months per year. So as an analogy for those of us who are graduate students, if you're getting paid $24,000 per year, then the effect of our treatment on you is as if you were given $8,000 as a bonus by the end of the year. How happy will you be to get this extra money? I imagine many students in the audience now want to go and work in Tanzania. But really, what's our impact on Salim and his family? Well, Salim's son can now get an education in school rather than having to work on farm all day. Furthermore, Salim's family is now more food secure and better off. The policy implications from my study highlight the need for providing farmers with both soil testing and money borrowing services in order to increase fertilizer use and enhance productivity. Through my research, my aim is to direct funding towards policies that leave an impact on people's lives. This way, lifting poor households like Salim's out of poverty and reducing food insecurity become a reality, become the reality. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Next up, we have Simila Lua Ayula. She'll be speaking about a human rights approach to improving food security in the Lake Chad area. She's a graduate of law from Nigeria. Similulua has worked in the nonprofit sector and is dedicated to improving the livelihoods of vulnerable communities through research and practice.
Quick questions. Show of hands if you ever feel hungry. Of course we all do. Now, show of hands if you have to go to a farm to get your food. Few hands, one hand. I thought so. In our society, when we get hungry, we simply go to the supermarket to buy food or groceries. Imagine a scenario where people do not have enough to eat, where their main source of livelihood, agriculture, is threatened by food scarcity. That is food insecurity. And for the 30 million people living in the area around Lake Chad, this is their reality. I'm designing rights-based policies to ensure food security in the Lake Chad area. Lake Chad is a great inland body of fresh water located in the Sahel. It's the main source of livelihood for the communities surrounding it. These communities are found in 4 countries: Niger, Nigeria, Chad, and Cameroon. Due to frequent changes in climate experienced in the region, this lake is only 10th the size it was in the 1960s. Consequently, it's affecting people's access to water and other natural resources to sustain their livelihood. Being Nigerian myself, I understand the gravity of impact this has on the people. Therefore, my research looks at data that show the specific impacts of climate change on food in the Lake Chad area. I analyzed reports and policies from the World Food Programme, the Food and Agriculture Organization, and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change to understand the international legal and policy framework of food security. I also evaluate current policies in the region to bring them in conformity with international standards pertaining to food rights and security. Specifically, I assess the negative effects of the food security and climate change relationship on human rights. The objective? To design food policies that are not only sustainable in nature, but also human rights sensitive. Unlike existing approaches, I want to show how integrating a human rights framework in tackling the problem of food insecurity can lead to better outcomes and processes by empowering individuals as rights holders and reinforcing government's duties to respect, protect, and fulfill human rights. What does the impact of my research look like in the Lake Chad area? It is 30 million people having access to adequate amounts of safe and nutritious food. It is 4 threatened countries achieving food security, and 5.3 million children living a life devoid of hunger and malnutrition. Thank you for your attention.
Pretty awesome. The breadth and depth of the research is astounding. It's a great display of amazing things happening at McGill. Next up, we'll have Paulina Garcia de Alba Graui. She's an MSc student in pathology. She is a medical doctor from Mexico City who believes that everyone is capable of making a positive impact on the world. Her ultimate goal is that one day her research can improve the lives of eye cancer patients. And she'll be speaking on eye cancer treatment, past, present, and future. Welcome.
I would like to invite you to travel back in time with me. Imagine it's 1973, you have your routine eye exam, so you walk into your eye clinic, the doctor calls you in and shines that bright, annoying light into your eyes. 20 minutes later, he comes back in and tells you that you have uveal melanoma, the most common type of eye cancer in adults. And for the treatment, he will have to remove your eye. Now, I need you to look at the two people sitting beside you. Back then, in 1973, and after removing your eye, 1 out of the 3 of you would have not survived past 5 years due to the spreading of this cancer. But thankfully, we're not in 1973. So let's come to the present, the year 2020. Extensive research has been done. You go to your eye clinic, and the doctor tells you that he will give you radiotherapy and will be able to preserve your eye. However, 1 out of the 3 of you will still not survive past 5 years due to the spreading of this cancer. Knowing this really frustrated me because what it means is that eye cancer patient survival has not improved in over 40 years. So I decided to study the mechanism by which eye cancer develops in order to try and find alternative treatments. And this is what I found. The first thing you need to know is that cancers, they thrive in an inflammatory environment, which means that if there's inflammation in or surrounding the tumor, it sends a signal to neighboring cancer cells to grow and spread throughout the body. So I conducted various experiments using 4 different types of eye cancer cell lines using an anti-inflammatory medication. And this is what I found. After 24 hours of treatment, 80% of the cells did not survive, while 20% of the cells stopped growing. This anti-inflammatory drug is a very safe drug. It is commonly used by small children who have asthma for years with little to no side effects. And it can easily be paired with radiotherapy. Now, I would like to invite you to travel with me to the future. However, I do not believe in predicting the future. I believe in creating the future. And this anti-inflammatory drug is one of those building blocks that will help create a future where eye cancer patients will preserve their eyes and live longer. Thank you.
Knock, knock. Your dentist is here. Homa Fadi is a master's student in the Faculty of Dentistry. She was a dentist back in Iran, but decided to study oral public health to learn skills necessary for making major impacts on the oral healthcare system and dentistry education. Her research focuses on improving the accessibility of dental services for vulnerable populations, especially the elderly. Welcome, Homa.
I can vividly remember my grandmother, who had a lot of problems with her dentures. She used to take a soft piece of bread and put it inside her dentures so that she could chew with them. We really would have liked to take her to a dentist, but she had so many medical conditions and mobility limitations that it was almost impossible to get her out of the house. Unfortunately, she suffered from nutrition deficiency at the final years of her life. Now, This could be pretty much the fate of every elderly in Canada, especially in 20 years when 1 in 4 Canadians would be over the age of 65. So what are our plans for dental care of our elderly population? Well, one of the potential solutions, as you could see here, is home-based dentistry. Home-based dentistry happens when the dentist goes to the patient, be it in their houses or the institutions where they live, and provide dental services there with portable dental equipment. This is not only very comfortable and accessible for the elderly, it will also reduce their dependency on family members who otherwise might have to spend a whole day to accompany them to a dental office. Well, while this seems like an amazing idea, we have only one problem. As I'm talking to you today, there are only 2 dentists all over the Quebec province who provide such services. And is that enough? I doubt it. So, what is the problem? Why don't we have more dentists like that? What are the challenges and barriers of home-based dentistry? And how could we address them? My research is going to answer those questions. To find out, I am going to do over 40 interviews with dentists and dental hygienists from different backgrounds, genders, years of practice, and areas of practice from all over Quebec to capture as much information as possible. Then I'm going to analyze these interviews line by line and minute by minute to develop a comprehensive list of solutions for every problem that we have. I'm going to present these solutions to an expert panel, and together we will decide whatever needs to be done to improve access to home-based dentistry. Moreover, I'm going to use my results to develop a training program for McGill dental students. In fact, I'm making sure that our next generation of dentists are ready to adopt home-based practices. Long story short, our grandmothers deserve to eat properly, smile regularly, and enjoy their lives. And together, we could make sure of that with home-based dentistry. Thank you.
Rania Afiouni has over 20 years' experience, half of which as a software entrepreneur and half in academia. She's been recently awarded a doctoral fellowship by the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada. Her research focuses on the relationship between human and AI and their evolution over time. She's currently studying how radiologists redesign and craft their AI-augmented jobs. Le radiologue et les intelligences artificielles. Bienvenue, Rania.
Et moi, je fais quoi alors? Qu'est-ce qui me reste à faire maintenant que l'intelligence artificielle analyse des images, génère des rapports et effectue un bon nombre des tâches que je fais dans mon travail quotidien? Ceci est un échantillon des questions qui préoccupent Sarah, notre radiologue. Et puis, qu'en est-il de nous, les patients? Est-ce que vous voulez qu'une machine vous donne votre diagnostic? Et si c'est le mauvais, qui ou quoi est responsable? Sarah s'inquiète. Elle pourrait être tenue responsable d'une décision qu'elle n'a pas prise, que l'IA a prise, parce que c'est elle le médecin après tout. Mais ce qu'elle a besoin d'être, c'est un médecin qui est en contrôle des décisions dont elle est responsable. Oui, mais comment? Justement, le but de ma thèse, c'est de comprendre comment les radiologues modifient leur travail en fonction de l'IA pour pouvoir maintenir le contrôle sur les décisions médicales importantes. Pour la première fois, les radiologues sont en train de connaître un remplacement important de leurs tâches. Beaucoup d'experts conviennent que ceci ne veut pas dire un remplacement de leur travail, mais plutôt une transformation de celui-ci. Transformation que je maintiens est menée par les radiologues eux-mêmes. Hautement qualifiés et autonomes, ils ont et l'opportunité et la capacité d'apporter des changements à leur travail sans avoir besoin d'intervention de l'administration. Mais tout le monde ne réagit pas de la même manière à l'innovation. Sarah est contente de l'adopter parce que ça la libère de certaines tâches et lui permet de se concentrer sur ce qu'elle aime le plus, la recherche médicale. Par contre, son collègue Nicolas, lui, ne fait pas confiance du tout à l'IA et il essaie de l'éviter autant que possible pour protéger ses patients. Dans mes recherches, j'irai dans 2 centres hospitaliers pour pouvoir comparer. Là, j'observerai 25 radiologues de sous-spécialités différentes reconcevoir leur travail en fonction de ce que l'IA peut et ne peut pas faire, mais aussi et surtout en fonction de ce que les radiologues eux-mêmes sont prêts ou pas à déléguer à la machine. Sur la base de ces observations, ainsi que d'entrevues et de documents organisationnels, je modéliserai les différentes façons dont ils changent leurs compétences, leurs relations professionnelles et leurs pratiques. Comprendre comment l'IA transforme le travail des radiologues aide Sarah et ses collègues à être mieux préparés et les organisations de soins de santé à pouvoir faciliter une transformation plus positive. Ça peut également aider d'autres professionnels à tirer des leçons de l'expérience des radiologues. Mais surtout, et c'est le plus fondamental pour moi, cette recherche souligne l'importance d'avoir un humain en contrôle, surtout quand les conséquences sont aussi sérieuses que la vie humaine. Merci.
Annika Swaby is a registered dietitian who obtained her bachelor's degree from the McGill School of Human Nutrition in 2018. In her final year, she joined the Agilent Lab as a recipient of an NSERC Undergraduate Student Research Award, where she contributed to improving the performance of an artificial gut system in culturing gut microbiota. She's now pursuing graduate studies to further develop innovative skills in discovery research targeted towards promoting human health and wellness. She'll be telling us about how to keep our friendly gut bacteria happy.
So, show of hands, how many people here eat yogurt? Almost everyone. How many people eat cheese? So you've probably heard that when we eat yogurt or cheese, we get some important nutrients and some probiotics. Probiotics are the kinds of bacteria that are good for us because they help keep us healthy. Naturally, there are other kinds of bacteria that are bad because they make us sick. But today my focus is on the community of bacteria that live in the gut. This community is made up of thousands of different kinds of bacteria, and there is a mixture of good and bad. Our body has natural defenses that allows the growth of the good bacteria, like the probiotics, while keeping the bad bacteria from taking over. But some of the foods we eat, like junk foods, have components that can cause the bad bacteria to overgrow, ultimately causing an unhealthy change in the composition of our gut bacterial community. In fact, this change has been linked to many diseases, like obesity and diabetes. But what exactly is in junk foods that causes this change? How does a healthy gut community become unhealthy, and who are the good and bad bacteria? I'll tell you what I'm working on that's going to help us answer these questions. You see, when studying the gut bacterial community in humans, there are challenges like getting samples directly from the gut, and things are further complicated by the body's natural defenses. We can get around this by taking samples and growing them in the lab so we can study the changes in composition and function in response to the components of junk food. Our lab uses a specialized incubator to do this. It copies the conditions in our gut and allows bacteria to grow. But when we use the food that labs routinely use to grow bacteria, the composition turns out very different from what we started out with.
And this is a big problem because when we're ready to test the response to the junk food components, we can't see the true effect. So I'm feeding the bacteria with food that they were already used to in the gut, something that's optimal, that can preserve the composition of the community, allowing us to test the response to things like excess sugar and saturated fat, and many of the preservatives and additives found in processed foods. Other researchers could also use this method to see the response to things like antibiotics and environmental contaminants. Overall, this new approach will help improve our understanding of how the gut bacterial community is changed, help us identify the good and bad bacteria, and as a dietitian, I'm excited to find the links between the probiotics, like the ones in your yogurt, and the foods that keep them happy so they keep us healthy. Thank you.
I will now present Konstantina Halastra. Konstantina is a PhD candidate from Greece in mining and materials engineering, who has fought and won the battle against single-use plastic water bottles on McGill's campuses. Woohoo! A champion for environmental sustainability and a lifelong Greek scout, Konstantina believes we can all learn and do better when it comes to developing, extracting, and benefiting from our precious natural resources. Her talk is titled Filter Now, Enjoy Later.
Imagine you're up north on a weekend getaway and you're planning on going swimming at this beautiful lake. You get all excited, quickly change into your bathing suit, but once you get closer, you see a big sign, toxic, do not enter. What a disappointment. You're not going to use your bathing suit over the weekend after all. One of those possible toxic pollutants, it's called selenium. Selenium is an element of environmental concern and a byproduct from coal, mineral mining, agriculture, and oil extraction. Selenium, though, is important for our body. In low levels, in high, can cause several diseases, while excess consumption is fatal. My name is Konstantina Halastra, and my research aimed to develop an industrial-sized Brita. My research aimed to help the industry to filter out selenium from polluted water 4 times better than any other method so far. I'm going to do light to do this, and my homemade synthesized nanoparticles. The nanoparticles are very small particles. Just for you to imagine, its size is 100,000 times smaller than the thickness of our human hair. In this case, I'm synthesizing titanium dioxide nanoparticles. Starting with an aqueous solution, I developed an easily scalable process where we can have large amount of nanoparticles with no waste nor toxic additives. After the synthesis, I add the nanoparticles in the polluted water, but I found out that selenium is just floating around and is not getting absorbed on its surface. And this is where light comes in. When light shines on the nanoparticle, selenium gets absorbed faster on its surface. And this is what we call photoadsorption. By systematically altering several parameters throughout the synthesis process of the nanoparticles, like temperature, agitation speed, concentration, and acidity of the starting solution, I have been able to evaluate the interaction with the nanoparticle and the selenium and optimize its absorption after light illumination. And this is how my Brita will help the industry filter out selenium or other industrial pollutants before we release it to a lake, a river, or an ocean and threaten the aquatic life. So the next time you're up north, there is a better chance for you to use your bathing suit after all. This is possible, just with light and my homemade nanoparticles. And remember, there is more at stake than us swimming. Thank you.
I'll report two things. One, we have 2 speakers left. Second is I've noticed the speakers as they leave the stage are very happy. I'll now present Sarah Gariani in the Executive MBA program. She'll be speaking to us about how to improve patient-centric care in Canada. Sarah works with organizations to implement customer-centric processes to improve how they manage and measure their teams. She spent months researching management within Montreal hospitals and has completed several related projects. She's very passionate about patient care and entered this competition to make sure that her research does not go unnoticed, and she wants to make sure to implement and test her findings. Welcome, Sarah.
The policy "no news is good news" is running rampant throughout Canadian healthcare institutions. Meet Mark. Mark is a patient who was admitted twice into the ER within a few days. He was forced to be discharged at 10:30 p.m. when his family was not awake. He fainted in the pharmacy, getting his own prescription. Since being discharged, he's had over 30 appointments between 3 Montreal hospitals. Imagine how painful, how inefficient, how costly. And to top it off, not once has a hospital asked him, "How was your patient experience?" But they were organized enough to ask Mark to donate money. And hospitals have a term for this. They're striving to provide patient-centric care. What is patient-centric care? If I were to ask each of you, you would each have a different definition, because what is patient-centric to Mark isn't necessarily patient-centric to you. Patients' needs vary by hospital, which means each hospital needs their patient's input to define the term. So if we can't define it, how can we improve it? Countless solutions have been proposed to fix a system deeply in need of reform. These proposals would take years and significant investment to even begin implementing. Hospitals have not found a solution and are still struggling in providing truly patient-centric care. This led to my research question: how can hospitals become patient-centric while avoiding bureaucracy? I looked at business models and theories, and I interviewed countless healthcare professionals. And even though business has no place in hospitals, their opinions confirmed that, in fact, hospitals are applying 70% of business models without a structured approach. A crucial 30% was missing. Patients are minimally involved, healthcare professionals do not have a common goal, and we have doctors and nurses who are going above and beyond, and they are starving for recognition. I propose a 3-step solution for hospitals to start providing patient-centric care, which starts with gathering patient feedback and analyzing it, communicating a common goal, and then watching for and rewarding model behavior. Doing this would improve patient experience, it would increase retention rates, and most importantly of all, it would improve morale for everybody concerned. Mark had a terrible experience, and I hope that never happens to you or your loved ones. We all have a role to play in providing truly patient-centric care, and bureaucracy is no longer an acceptable excuse. Someone once said, "You can't fake listening, it shows." We need to start listening to the Marks of this world. Thank you.
I'm a little sad that we're at the last presentation. It's been phenomenal. And our final presenter will be Charbel El Kafraoui, doing his MSc in experimental surgery. Charbel completed his BSc in neuroscience and Hispanic languages at McGill. He's enrolled in the Faculty of Medicine doing his MSc in experimental surgery. He's very involved in the student community as vice president internal at the Science Undergraduate Society, and he's been a soccer referee at McGill for 7 years. Charbel's career goal is to become a clinician scientist, and his research is focused on the opioid crisis in North America. His talk is titled Preventing Opioid Prescription After Surgery. Welcome, Charbel.
I want to tell you a story. A story like this happens 12 times every single day in Canada. The story starts with John, a 32-year-old construction worker from Ontario. After a routine surgery, John's doctor gave him some pills to help with his pain. The pills worked. No more pain. A few weeks later, John was still taking the pills. John was addicted to the pills. On November 2nd, 2017, John's 5-year-old daughter found him dead after a fatal overdose. This is the story of John Roberts. This is the story of 4,500 Canadians who died last year from an opioid overdose. Canada is truly living an opioid crisis, a crisis partially caused by surgeons who prescribe several times more opioids than their colleagues in other countries. Most of the pills prescribed are not even used for their intended purposes. Instead, they can get diverted and may end up with a friend or a family member who might use them inappropriately. This crisis has become so bad it's causing life expectancy in Canada to decrease. I know, the story is looking pretty grim, but I wouldn't be here telling this story if it ended there. My research investigates non-opioid drugs to treat pain after surgery. Now, these are drugs you're familiar with. Pills like Tylenol or Advil that you use to relieve your headache might actually be better than opioids at treating postoperative pain. To test the effectiveness of these drugs, I'm doing something called a systematic review. Essentially, there are some studies out there that have addressed this topic, but they're scattered all over the literature. My research task was 1, to find these studies, and 2, combine their results to get a clear answer and guide clinical decision-making. Now, to do this, I embarked on a virtual fishing trip, casting the biggest net possible into the depth of the internet to find the studies I was interested in. 2 months later, I found 20,000 articles that dealt with my topic. And after sifting through all 20,000, I found 39 that compared opioid to non-opioid prescriptions after surgery. I have some exciting news to share with you. When looking at combined data from these studies, non-opioid drugs really do seem to provide similar pain relief to opioids while reducing side effects, addiction, and overdose. This is the first time anyone has worked on a systematic review of this topic, work that is long overdue. Every life we lose due to opioid misuse is already one too many. My research will help doctors and patients like John make an informed decision to treat postoperative pain and help end the opioid crisis in Canada. Thank you.
Wow, let's give a huge round of applause to everybody. Our distinguished panel of judges will make their exit so they can deliberate in peace and quiet. Bonne chance, good luck to them. You'll need it. And we're going to start voting for the People's Choice Award. To cast your vote, simply check off the box next to the name of the presenter on the paper ballot if you're in the hall here with us today. You receive this ballot in your program. Once done, you may hand your ballot to Sophie, Lily, and Isabel. Put up your hands. Where are you? You'll see them walking around to make sure that they get the ballots from you. For those watching online, you can vote using the link in the description box below the video. Pour ceux qui regardent la compétition online, vous pouvez voter pour les prix de public via les lignes présentées dans la description sous la vidéo. Polling will already be open. Away you go. We'll take a couple minutes for that. I would ask the presenters to join me on stage. Presenters, come on up, all of you. Volcanologists, gut bacteria researchers, lionfish researchers, patient-centric care, on and on, dentists alike. Yeah, keep on. You can move. Guys, move down a little bit so there's room. Okay, you can use your flashes now if you want. So what we're going to do is we have a little bit of time while the judges deliberate to give a chance for any of you in the audience, if you have any questions for any of the presenters, now is your chance. So we have a microphone. We'd like to use the microphone so that those watching online are able to hear the question, and I have a mic that I'll throw at the relevant presenter so they may answer. Any questions? Oh, come on. I have a lot, but I don't know if you... Don't be shy. Okay, we've got one back there.
Okay, thank you. My name is Phillips. My question is directed to Sophie. So I was just wondering why you mentioned beer in your title, beer, bread, and brain tumor. So I think you mentioned it at the end of your presentation, but I'm trying to see the connection. Yeah, if you can elaborate on that.
I decided to use yeast as a model to study brain tumors because it's a really great model for human cells. And then coincidentally, yeast is also used to make beer and it's used to make bread. So that sort of ties together, highlights like different uses of that organism.
Thank you. Other questions? Dean of GPS has a question. Will it be a candidacy level exam question? Definitely.
So I'm trying to get the name of the person. It was the DNA cage, right? Okay. So how do you target the DNA to the cancer cells?
So that, what do you mean? Like, so the idea is it would go everywhere, but then when you shine light, that's where it, only where you irradiate it, that's where it would be
so
released.
You knew the location of the tumor and then...
Yes, yes.
Got it. Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
Just to follow up that question, like how your light penetrate the skin?
Yeah, so so two major aspects of my project are DNA and then azobenzene. And in the azobenzene field right now, one of the hot topics is trying to use different wavelengths of light. So for us, everyone in the audience is probably familiar with visible light, which is light we can see right there that's blinding me. And then there's UV light, which we can't see, but gets blocked by your sunglasses, and that will be damaging to you. There's also other types of light, so near IR light, which is can penetrate the skin because it's a longer wavelength. So, yes.
That's in Shane's 5-minute thesis competition.
Yes.
Hi, my name's Amy. I've got a question for Salua. I'm also in law. My question is about your conclusions seem to be about ultimately the impact and availability of food and food security. And the problem that you set up was one of a lack of availability of food. But as you're a legal scholar and your recommendations relate to the creation of human rights standards, I'm wondering if you could talk about what the problem is from the perspective of human rights rather than food availability.
Thank you for that question. So presently, I'm trying to contrast what the government is presently doing to giving recommendations on what it could do to produce better outcomes and processes. So presently, it's sort of a needs approach towards providing for ensuring food security within the region and providing food. But I'm proposing that we integrate a human rights framework in that approach so as to have the individuals, citizens play an active role in the policy-making process so as to have better outcomes in terms of respecting, protecting, and fulfilling human rights, because the processes of ensuring food security could also affect human rights aside the outcomes of those actions themselves. So I'm trying to look at how we could integrate human rights framework in that process so that ultimately citizens' human rights are not violated during the process and it has better outcomes in ensuring food security and the rights of the people.
I know we have a question up front here.
Oui, une question pour Rania Fiuni, pour l'intelligence artificielle et l'humain en contrôle de l'intelligence artificielle. C'est un sujet assez intéressant. Ma question, est-ce que si l'humain n'est pas en contrôle, est-ce que ça pose des problèmes d'éthique aussi?
Bien sûr, c'est à la source du problème, le problème éthique, mais il y a aussi quelque chose à prendre en considération, c'est que l'humain doit être en contrôle dans certaines situations, mais dans d'autres situations où il est peut-être parfois mieux d'avoir la machine en contrôle. Donc c'est vraiment très contextuel. Et c'est pour ça qu'il faut vraiment observer les radiologues dans leur travail, dans le contexte de la santé, pour voir dans quelle situation, dans quel contexte, dans quel type de tâches et dans quel type de conditions il faut déléguer à la machine ou bien ne pas déléguer à la machine. Parce qu'il y a beaucoup d'études qui aussi parlent de, je ne trouve pas le mot, accuracy. Donc, oui, l'exactitude de l'intelligence artificielle qui est parfois supérieure à celle des humains dans certaines conditions. Donc, on ne peut pas généraliser, mais c'est quelque chose à observer, à apprendre des radiologues par leur travail.
I have a question for Homa Fatih. Yes, you mentioned that there is, for right now, there is 2 dentists that can give the dental service for the elderly person or in-home service. I just wondering that in your research, do you consider the coverage, like governmental coverage or insurance coverage, and their impact in facility this service for patient and dentist service also?
Thank you for this question. Actually, this is great. The problem, we have a list of problems. So for instance, we have a problem which is concerning the portable equipment. We also have a problem with financial sustainability of the model, so that both dentists could make income, proper income, and also patients could pay. And patients here are the elderly who are retired and most probably don't have a proper plan. So it's a little bit tricky because we don't have a public infrastructure for dentistry in Canada. So we are working on that. But the idea is because this model of practice doesn't need a big office and sophisticated equipment. So dentist has an overall low overhead for, this is a business that has minimal requirements. So it is possible to maybe have fees lower than what we have or compensate for this situation from other ways. We're working on it, but most definitely we're going to cover those type of questions. So of what are the plans of dentists to somehow address this financial problem, because yes, that's huge. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, it means that you mean like starting the dentist business as a mobile dentist?
It could be. You could completely start as a mobile practice, as we have. One of the dentists in Montreal is completely mobile dentist. But also, a dentist could, for instance, do it just on weekends, just on 2 days, just in 2 afternoons. The dentist could have a monthly contract with elderly nursing homes. It's not so hard. It's more, right now it's more about attitudes, not from the dentist towards the elderly, but also from the elderly towards the dentist. So how we could remove this communication barrier, because now we have the model, we have the equipment, we have all that we need, but still they're not adopting it. So I think it's very important that we address this, because our elderly population is growing, and it's really, they really need this kind of coverage. Yeah.
This question is also for Homa. As I understand from my physiotherapists, dentists suffer greatly from ergonomic issues.
Tell me about
it. And this, I imagine, would be exacerbated in varied home settings with various equipment, chairs, etc. How do you plan to address this?
Yeah, as I'm talking to you today, so last week I had my physiotherapy session, because I only practiced dentistry for 3 years, but it's like I have a souvenir for the rest of my life. So, and I practice mobile dentistry, but not that much. So that is a perfectly good question. So the idea is that many times we are talking about wheelchair patients, and those patients who have electronic wheelchair, their wheelchair is better than our units. They can, change it, adopt it to whatever level we need it. So one thing is that, and the other thing is that we have portable unit. It's just we could wrap it up and then open it, set it up again. So it has the minimal standard. I personally, after 3 years of practice, that's not much, but that gives me a good idea. I think no matter whether you practice portable dentistry or fixed dentistry, you are the one who have to keep your posture, be careful about it, and also do yoga. Please do yoga.
Do yoga.
Do yoga.
There you go.
Yeah.
You heard it. You heard it
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Just before, I just want to mention quickly, anyone that's hasn't voted yet for the People's Choice, we only have about a minute and a half left, so get your votes in, please, and do yoga. We have a question up here, or here.
Hi, actually
there
me.
There you are. Very good.
My question is for Konstantina. Great job. And question for you. So are there regions of the world in particular, or regions in Canada that are particularly affected by the saline excess that would benefit from your Brita filter?
Thank you for your question. Yes, unfortunately there are. It used to be in Ontario several lakes, unfortunately. And in Alberta, Saskatchewan, all the industries up there, even the small amounts, we are talking about parts per billion that we have to lower it down, it's quite difficult. So yes, still there are lakes that we can't swim.
Very good. Yeah. I'm going to take one question, then I have a question, and I'm going to interject after you, because I have the mic up here. But we'll go here first.
Hello, I have a question for Mr. Charbel. I am a pharmacist, and it's a subject that interests me. And I would like to know if you compare the mortality rate also between the two treatment, the opioid and the regular analgesic, because I know there's also problem with the regular analgesic. I've seen story of people didn't want to take opioid and taking too much Tylenol and or ibuprofen and having a liver failure or kidney failure because of that. So that's, I think, did you address this matter?
So when doing the systematic review, we're trying to collect a plethora of data. Our main outcome is pain outcomes, but we're also looking at secondary outcomes. We have adverse events, whether it be vomiting, for example, or other adverse events. So if a patient bleeds out, if a patient goes back to the hospital, or if a patient dies, then these are data that we're collecting. And then at the end of the systematic review, we'll be able to pinpoint what drug can cause which adverse event
I know that non-opioid drugs, so you mentioned Tylenol can have liver toxicity, NSAIDs usually can have kidney toxicity. So these are things that we're aware of and we're trying to collect and trying to see whether or not it's feasible afterwards.
So my question to any candidate who hasn't had a question yet, I'm curious about the process of starting the 3-minute thesis back in September and getting here. There's a lot you probably learned during the process, but if anyone wants to highlight anything in particular that you're going to take away from this process.
So for me, like I started the competition from Mac campus last November last year, and I participated. I learned a lot. Over there, like I didn't win, and so to me that was, I started doubting myself. And then I thought, should I participate in downtown or not? And then I've been working on it, practicing, getting feedback from a couple of friends, going for it. Also, many people motivated me. And then I thought, okay, let me go for it. And then I made it to the finalist. And to me, this is, I already won.
Everyone's a winner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else have thoughts on what they, yeah?
Yeah, for me, it was definitely learning about all the other different research and talking with students in the training from other departments, studying completely different things. Because in my department, we're always talking about rocks or water or ice sheets or something, earth dynamics. So it was really interesting to learn from other disciplines and see what else is going on at McGill.
Just quickly before show of hands, do you guys prefer if I speak English or French? Doesn't matter? OK.
Français, oui.
Français?
Oui,
OK,
oui.
c'est bon. Donc, ce que je trouvais vraiment impressionnant avec cette expérience-là, c'est vraiment l'idée que quand on fait de la recherche, quand on est impliqué comme ça, on se fait souvent demander par nos départements, par nos superviseurs de participer dans des conférences, donc de partager nos recherches, évidemment, parce que le point de faire ça, c'est vraiment l'idée d'étendre nos connaissances puis de partager avec les gens, mais on se réfrène beaucoup à partager avec d'autres experts, d'autres gens dans nos domaines. Puis c'est vraiment ça qui est dommage parce qu'au bout du compte, la recherche, c'est pas juste pour nos collègues experts, mais c'est vraiment pour tout le monde parce qu'on veut apporter des solutions. On veut vraiment apporter des changements. Puis tout ça, on peut le faire en partageant avec vous dans ces conditions-là. On peut le faire en partageant avec des gens du gouvernement, avec d'autres gens que des gens qui font partie de notre domaine d'expertise. Puis je trouve que c'est vraiment ça qui est important. Puis c'est vraiment une belle valeur qui est transmise à travers ce concours-là.
I just wanted to add one last thing about the process is I think what happened with me was that I got like so deep into the minutia of my project that it stopped being fun. Like at some point, I just hated it so much. And, can anyone relate? And taking part in the competition like helped me step back and talk to different people who were like, I would tell them like, I study brain tumors with yeast, and they'd be like, cool. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess it is kind of cool. So it helps you like take a step back and realize that what you do is cool.
Yeah, that's great. And I think I don't know, through our careers, we become so specialized at certain points, and then we have to become generalists again, and those require different skills and communication and different sorts of training. And I think for graduate students, the opportunity to move away from the lab bench or the book or whatever it is, to think in a more general way about how to communicate is such a valuable skill. Because we all have to do various things in our careers, and being able to, as you said, kind of expand beyond the minutia of the research is valuable. So that's a great comment. How are we doing? Do we have more questions from the audience? Yes, we have some more back here.
Hi, sorry, my voice is a little gone today, but thank you all so much for your talk. I have so many questions. I wish I could ask them all, but I'm going to ask a question to Konstantina. Your talk was really interesting. I was just wondering, do you foresee any potential like negative long-term consequences to releasing your nanoparticles in like a large body of water? And can you speak to maybe how they might degrade or be removed if that were to be the case?
So, thank you for your question. We are not actually releasing the nanoparticle. The goal is to make a filter, right? As I said, an industrial-sized Brita. So the goal is to not release the nanoparticles because then we cannot take them back, right? And we're talking very, very, very small particles. And they need also light. So if we just remove them like that, it's not going to be able in a pool of water. So there is a chance, obviously, to just get released from the filter. So the packed reactor, or like the filter that we're trying to attach them on, it has to be very well attached and, not to get away with a current. But yes, that's part of the process to make it industrial plate. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, we've got another question back there. Don't worry, I'm getting live updates from the judges in terms of timing. They need a little bit more time, but we're getting there.
Okay, a little bit quick. My question is for Sarah, for the patient-centric care. How did the doctors react to you kind of questioning them on their, I guess, service level or stuff that, I mean, we all care about people, but the way that their diagnosis or the process was playing on their, people?
I think they were very aware of a lot of things that weren't happening. And I think a lot of them I was showing them business models, and a lot of them were realizing that, oh yeah, we could do that, or oh yeah, we should do that, or yeah, that would be great, but we don't have time to do that. So they were aware, and it was never, they're really the heroes in all of this. At the end of the day, it's really the system that's running them that is unfortunate. So that's what I would say.
My question's for Constantina. So how scalable would your system be for, let's say, different size factories, like a small mill in Ontario versus a refinery in the oil sands?
Versus my lab in Wong Building and on campus?
Sure.
Yes, that's a very good question. Volume-wise, it's not easy to scale up. Already on the nanoparticle side, we are very, you read papers that are like, I don't know, even 20 mLs. And I've scaled it up, so I'm able to use a continuous reactor where we have a continuous flow in, a continuous flow out, and controlling several parameters, which are more than the 3 that I already mentioned in my talk. We control what we get. So we control the nanoparticles, which will make the filter. So this is the first part, which took several years of my life. And this is established and nice. We know what we're getting out of it. The volume that this will be able to decontaminate, as in the industry, has many parameters to deal with, like what other pollutants will have in the water. So that I cannot answer just for selenium. So an oil refinery will have several other elements in the water that we'll have to decontaminate at the same time. So there is kind of a competition of elements and how much of the volume we will be able to decontaminate at the same time. Does this answer your question? Yeah, I think, yeah. So it has potential, but at the moment, just like that, we are not able to say how much we are able to take it down, in which volume. Sorry.
Okay, so round of applause to the presenters again. So they've been through months of training, and now they gave their presentations, and now we're forcing them to stand on stage and answer more questions. You're all welcome to go sit down and relax, and we'll be finished up in just a few minutes. I'm happy to take any of your questions. I actually have no more material right now, just to let you. I'm fresh out of everything, but we're just awaiting the judges. The online voting has finished. Public prize is finished. The judges are almost finished, and then we'll wrap things up. But yoga's a nice thing to do. So you can close your eyes and do a little breathing exercises. Enjoy time with yourself for the last couple of minutes of the day. Aha, the judges have arrived. Woo! Il y a beaucoup de personnes à qui nous devons donner un gros merci pour l'événement aujourd'hui. So planning this event started in September. It took an incredibly large team. And so before we hear the winners, we want to take a few minutes to thank those involved. First of all, the team from Skillset and GPS, including all those who assisted with the training sessions and event planning, especially April and Isabel. For those of you here right now, please stand up and wave, and we'll give you a round of applause. And I'd be remiss if I didn't introduce Alex Liepens as well. I don't always know what Alex does, but he seems to get people to do a lot of things efficiently. So well done, Alex. Davis Hepner for designing the event program. Thank you, Davis. Our fantastic photographer, Alex Tran, up here. And the video team today, led by Stu at the back, and John and others. All of the other McGill staff and students who gave the competitors feedback throughout the process and helped select the finalists during the qualifying heats. The support from Alumni Relations, Interact, and Communications and External Relations is much appreciated. Our judges today, who had a very challenging job, thank you for taking the time and helping select the winners. I mentioned Interact before. Generous support is critical to this kind of event. And we must thank the students who had the courage to present today and stand up in front of all of you and the millions of viewers on YouTube. Félicitations à tous nos finalistes par la qualité de leur présentation. The quality was exceptional and really a pleasure. It was our pleasure to be here with all of you. So let's give a final warm welcome or thanks to everyone involved. Now we'll ask the Dean of Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Studies, Dean Nalbantoglu, will announce the winners, and I'll get out of the way. Making some adjustments.
We're shuffling them around. Okay. So I'm calling them one by one. They come up, we do the pictures.
Yeah.
Is that it?
So
Yeah.
maybe we invite the judges up. You want to get photos with the judges and the winners? No?
At the very end,
We'll get photos with you.
We'll get
Yeah.
the judges
You
up
got it.
at the very
You
end.
got it.
Okay. So Alex told me what to do. I hope I remember. So we have the People's Choice Award first, and it was Similua Ayula. So I've done this many years, so I think I know how to hold these, right? So now I start with third place?
Yeah, third place. Thank you.
Got
You're
it.
great.
Okay. Third place was Sarah Gariani. Second place, I'm going to ask Similulua to come up again. And this year's 3MT winner is Shane Gracious with a fan group.
The other one, Joe.
Oh, it's the French one.
You're doing it. There you go.
Who's got yeah. There you go. And la gagnante de ma thèse en 180 secondes est Rania Afiouni. So I'm going to hand it over to still the MC. Okay, there we go.
Don't forget, you're all winners. Really, really, really great job by everyone. Thank you. Okay, we're almost done. 2 more pages left. Just a small reminder, tomorrow is McGill 24, an annual day of giving here at the university and around the world. We encourage all of you from McGill to share your stories and demonstrate your McGill pride using the hashtag McGillProud. For those of you inspired by the research heard today, we encourage you to contribute. Every single gift counts, and they do really change the trajectory of students' lives. I want to again thank very much to our students for their presentations today, for all of you in the audience and to the judges, and we'd actually like to ask that the judges and the presenters stay in the ballroom for a few minutes afterwards so we can do a few photos. That means the rest of you get to go to the reception area and start the reception, but save some for the presenters, of course. Thank you for coming out and supporting and celebrating the excellence of graduate students and graduate studies here at McGill. Merci à tous nos spectateurs. We invite you for the reception. There's food and refreshments. We're done. Congratulations. Bravo.